Hi, I'm Franki. Welcome to Business on the Rise. This podcast is your playbook to learn everything you need to know to launch, grow, and fund your brand. Today, we'll be speaking to you with Nadzirah, Hashim, and Rachel of the Wavemakers Collective. The dynamic duo started as college mates and have now become business partners. They couldn't be any more different, but it works. I wanted to bring Rachel and Nadzirah to talk about how to build a marketing toolkit, but the conversations went deeper than that. We talked about community building as a marketing strategy, how to use AI in a way that works, and something that's very deep and speaks to me is health and wellness and how that affects your business and your people. Hi, ladies. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Great.
Feeling good
Good,
today.
good. Thanks for being here. We are with Rachel and Nadzirah, co-founders of the Wavemakers. Ladies, thank you for being here. To start the first question, an obvious one, very easy one. Just tell me a little bit more about who you are and what you do. Tell me a little bit more about your brand, Wavemakers. That's a pretty cool name. And more so, tell me a little bit more about your specific roles or individual specific roles.
I'll start. My name is Rachel Lai, and I'm representing the Wavemakers Collective, which is a company that I co-founded with Nadzirah here, who is also once upon a time my college friend. We're one of those stories that were like friends turn into business partners, and I guess it's been about 10 years since we're running this company. And what we do is we run an entity that offers consultancy, training, advisory, and community building. On a personal side, I am Malaysian. I live between Kuala Lumpur and Bali, and I've been running my own business for, I guess more than a decade now. And I'm very passionate about well-being and yoga on the side, and that's just me in general. Yeah.
Nadzirah.
Great. Yeah. I don't know where to start because Rachel kind of took all the words away from me. I guess I'll just add on. But yeah, I mean, to add on to what Rachel said, we're part of the Wavemakers Collective. I am the CEO and marketing strategist. So I work on mainly making sure the team's cool. We're a small team, by the way. We're only like 8 girls, 8 women from all over Southeast Asia, Philippines, Indonesia, and KL, of Malaysia specifically. And and I'm also a strategist. I work with within the agency, which is the entity, and we run marketing services for our clients, and also we do advisory, of course. And yes, I've been working with Rachel for almost probably 10 years. And we moved to Bali together, actually. It was like one day we woke up and we were like, yeah, we were going to Bali on a holiday. And then we saw the sunset and we're like, we're going to live here one day. And that's how we ended up here
So
10 years ago. But yeah, so that's Wavemakers. It's evolved over the years. We really just wanted to start off as training, actually. Training businesses on how to do marketing because we realized that there was a lot of businesses that needed that. And so we were doing all these little workshops in KL. And then eventually we decided that, well, actually, it's not we decided, they demanded that we did marketing services for them. And that's how the agency came to life. So fast forward to now, that's why we're an entity and we're called Wavemakers Collective with all the agency and the community and all that. So yeah.
that's very, very cool. I love the fact that you guys were college mates and now you're
Yes.
pretty much married to one another. You've become like soul partners.
Yeah. It's technically a long-term relationship that we've
Yeah.
invested.
Yeah. I mean, I say that because, my business partner, Gaia, and we've been friends since we were 12 years old. And now we've been in business for
That's even
over
longer.
15 years, and we live right next to each other. Our children are best friends, and I think I spend a lot more time with her than my actual husband. And actually, a lot of people think that I have a phantom husband. A lot of people think that we have a deeper relationship other than friendship and business. And we're like,
That's hilarious.
no. Yeah. Cool. So going back into the business and setting up Wavemakers Collective now, because I know that you've gone through a rebranding now. Initially, it was just Wavemakers, and now it's a collective of different components into the business. I want to know a little bit more about the team. You said there is 8 of you all over Southeast Asia. How does that work in terms of managing each role and how it all kind of goes together?
Well, Rachel, I think you can address that because you're pretty good at the team motivation stuff.
I was going to say, I thought you were going to address this, but yeah, great question, Frankie. It's not easy to
Yeah,
run a remote team. That's always been the challenge from the start. But along the way, we've established a system that was able to keep us all aligned regardless of our time zones and our differences. We didn't plan to have an all-women team. It's just sort of happened along the way. People that gravitate towards our company tend to be women, and we do work with men. They're typically like third-party, I don't know, like partners. We have partners who are men, but
yeah,
in the core of our team, they're mostly women. And I guess we all come together through shared values. We all share the same vision towards not just what we think we're good at work, but as
yeah,
well as what's important for us on a personal side. And we've been working very hard to establish this culture within our team where we keep our teams motivated. We get them to do the work that they need to do based on their roles, but we're also very much invested in trying to nurture them towards their greater potential. We
mm-hmm.
try to get them to see themselves long term in the company. So at the end, when they work with us, we find that most of the people continue to stay on with us like for years, and we've able to, I think that also translates to the kind of clients that we work with. We're all about
Yeah,
long term. And
yeah,
I think in order for us to achieve that sustainable types of relationship, it's come from a place where values, we all believe in the
yeah,
same thing. We all want to achieve the same thing. And naturally, we'll gravitate and naturally we'll want to work together towards like achieving a specific goal. So if you're asking about process, I mean, we try to establish check-ins with the team where on Mondays we start our week together, we keep each other accountable, and we sort of come together to like align, not just in terms of tasks and priorities, but also energetically, if that
yeah.
makes sense. Because Monday
You
is the
do
start
that
of the week,
energetically
and
when you're so remote.
well, because it becomes part of your routine, right? Like
Okay.
we all have different types of routines. I mean, we all wake up at a certain time, we go to bed at a certain time. So how do you integrate work in each other's routine is sort of the question that we ask ourselves. And I think what helps is having that consistency. So every Monday at 11 a.m., we're going to meet and this is what we're going to do. And so you just commit to it and it becomes
Okay.
part of your lifestyle, right? So I think
Mm-hmm.
integrating into our team members' lifestyle is sort of something that we've able to establish. And that's why we don't micromanage, whereas
Yeah,
like we get them to understand that the role that they take on is a choice that they make, right? You're doing this role because it's important for you in your career as well as something that you're trying to achieve in your life. So we're just here to provide you with that avenue. And of course, you're helping us achieve what we need to achieve in our business. But at the same time, I think it's important that you recognize you have to take ownership, So we try to instill that value into our team members. And that way, it's a lot more, I guess, proactive versus me
yeah,
telling you what to do. It's you also coming in to say, like, what do you want to do?
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's how we've able to work remotely with 8 women from different parts of the world for several years now, and we continue to do that with different people.
Yeah.
It's always that starting point. We check in. Okay, what do you want? What do we want? Do we have an agreement here? And if we're
Yeah.
both in agreement, then I think the relationship naturally unfolds from there.
Okay.
But yeah, that's just how I perceive it. I don't know about you, Naz. Is there anything you want to add to that and how we work with our team?
As I said, you just said it all. So I don't have to say much.
Do you
Yeah.
guys finish each other's sentences as well?
No, we're not one of those friends. We're
Okay.
very different, actually. I
Okay.
don't know about you.
No. Yeah, no,
Okay.
actually,
Cool.
yeah, we're not similar at all. I mean, I'll add on a little bit
Yeah.
on the technical side, because that's Rachel's very feels and I'm more like, like structure stuff. So on I
Love
mean,
it.
this is really just like the way we do it is we also have like tech tools that we utilize internally that helps the team have their routine
Yeah.
that makes sense. We use project management tools like Monday.com. We've been using that for years now, and we're very used to the idea of these tools. And I just can't imagine our lives without it, to be honest. And even when they hiked the price recently, and this is US dollars, right? So it's painful, but we're
Mm.
willing to sacrifice those dollars because the team functions so much better with it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I definitely wanted to add, that remote teams require a central space where we can
Mhm.
interact. And some people use Slack, and Trello and all, but we've been very used to Monday, and we love it, and that's one of the main tools we utilize. And of course, Google Drive, all the drives that we use to organize our documents makes it easier. Of course, things like Zoom. We leave our links open for our team to, as though they have a live meeting room. So like, if I have
Oh
a
wow.
meeting with Rachel, for example, I could come in and the team's in a meeting and we go into a breakout room. So it almost feels like you're entering an office instead of feeling like, hey, set a scheduled meeting. Yes, we have a scheduled meeting, but you arrive and you
Yeah.
see your teammates in a Zoom room with them, and you say hi, and then you go to a breakout room as though you're in another meeting. And that's fun. It feels more like connected, even though
Yeah.
we're far away. And
Yeah.
another thing we do is we organize a lot of weekly activities where we have fun games with our team. And when we do that, I make it a point to like deliver food to their respective homes
Oh, that's so
remotely.
sweet.
So like, I'll take an order, I'll be like, okay, what do you want from Grab? And yeah, shout out to Grab for being able to be regional.
Yeah.
But usually we deliver food to them so that when we're having our little team fun, we're also like eating and drinking and having a good time. So yeah, that's kind of how we built our team culture.
That sounds very, very cool. It's amazing what technology can can do, right?
Yeah.
You know, 10, 15 years ago, you would have never thought this was possible. And then here
No.
we are talking about a community of individuals in one company and having drinks and food at the same time and remotely. For me, that's just like, but I'm old school and I'm a bit of a tech. Ugh, this, yeah. Um, so Rachel, you talked a little bit about values, and I'm guessing that is something that you guys hold very, very dearly. And I want to talk a little bit more about that because I feel that that is a big part of a company and a brand's DNA. Just before leading to this next question, I just want to take back a little bit, right? Wavemakers Collective, you obviously found a niche in what you do. There's a lot of marketing, digital agencies out there. And, you know, I wouldn't know where to start in like, how do I differentiate between other marketing agencies out there and Wavemakers? And coming back to values and ethos. And that, for me, I think that is a stamp of your DNA, and that's what's going to set you apart from everybody else, right? Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Some of your values and your ethos and some of the unique selling points that makes you guys very, very different from other marketing agencies.
If you want to see like the marketing front in terms of how our brand has evolved, definitely go visit our website,
Yep.
wavemakers.co.
Yep.
Everything has been designed and curated and selected in terms of copy and words. But if I were to unpack what that means and how we arrived here, is that as Naz said, we started out as a training company, and then eventually people were seeking for services, hence why we launched the agency side to what we do. Whereas along the way, we realized that there were all these different types of businesses that chose to work with us, not just because of our strengths and the way we do things, but because of our personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's got to do with the fact that between me and Nadzirah, we're very different personalities, but somehow that synergy works. I'm more of like the relationship, the connector, the kind that people tend to want to work with out of trust. Whereas like Naz
Yep.
has always been the type that comes in for the structure, the organization, the vision, the big picture stuff. And we recognize our strengths and weaknesses, and we use that as an opportunity to kind of come together to decide that this is what's going to make us stand out in
Yep.
the industry, because it's the same, like you said, there's so many consultancies, so many
Yep.
agencies. What's going to make us like be different from the rest of them? And I think it's recognizing what's your strength and weaknesses, but not disregarding your weakness, but finding the avenues to like complement each other and to provide that as a unit. So we now see ourselves not just as a company, but a people-driven entity. And you can go on the internet, you can see a lot of people are trying to brand themselves as that, people-driven, right? But then what does that mean for us is that we truly do care about the people that we work with and work for.
Mm-hmm.
And we go the extra mile to have these relationships with our clients, not in the sense that we're trying to please them. We're not
Sure.
people pleaser, but we're just methodicals, and we truly want to service in a way that we understand everything that you need beyond the problem. So
Yep.
you'll come to us with a problem and we'll provide you with a solution, but then suddenly we look at this problem and we start to see all these different things within the organization that needs solving, or that we tend to have feedback on. For example, say a company comes to us and say, oh, we want to launch this product or service, right? Could you come up with a campaign for us? Us at Wavemakers, what we tend to do is like, sure, we can come up with a campaign, but because we're methodicals, we'll start to dig in. We'll start to look into the website. We'll start to audit the brand, go on the internet, and do this massive research where we'll start to analyze how the brand is perceived, as well as how the business has been operating within that period of time. And because we're both like comms, politics types of background students, journalism, as you can imagine, and you resonate with that, we want to know the story beyond everything. So
Yep.
we'll use this strength, this evaluation, this analysis to come back to the client and say like, okay, look, we can run this campaign for you, but before we do that, there's all these problems that you need to fix. And in order for this campaign to be successful, we need to work on this part first before we get to that part, if that makes sense. So I think like that's always been the added value that we provide as an agency. And that's why people come to us for that extra mile, or for that personalization, that we do take into consideration of the business, the brand, as well as the talent and the people
Yep.
that runs the company. So it's truly beyond a campaign at the end of the day. And I think that's how we perceive the brand. And that's why it was important for us to arrive to this stage now where, you know what, we can no longer call ourselves just Wavemakers as an agency, because it was confusing. Were you an agency? Were you a training company? So we spent, I think, a good half a year last year where we went through this process, beyond me and Nadzirah as founders, right, we also involve our team members who was working with us to get their insights and to understand how they perceive the company. So we're very inclusive, if that makes sense. And I
Yes.
know a lot of people talk about inclusivity. We're very inclusive, but like no one really talks about what that means in the
Sure.
process, And I think it requires us to have this ability to give people to speak up, to provide this space that they can share their opinions and that they're not disregarded, that it's taken into consideration, and that we use it as something that inspires our next course of action. So, yeah, a people driven entity currently is how we perceive ourselves. And we create these sub brands under each parts of our services: advisory, training, consultancy, and the community building part, which is something that I've been spearheading, which is, we call it karma marketing. And that's a whole other conversation later. But in a nutshell, that's essentially how we decided to rebrand and arrive to this decision. And I think Nadzirah probably has her take on the brand and the direction as well. So I don't
Well,
know.
I believe we're 100% aligned on that. I mean, that's why it took 6 months for us to create
Yeah.
this brand. Like
Yeah.
it was a long process because at the very core of it, we both like, even though we're different, there is a core similarity that obviously is what keeps this company like the way it is, and that is the fact that we're both very passionate about supporting humans, people, in business and in life, actually. So that's our core values, I would say, that is definitely 100% aligned. So differences in personalities doesn't change for that reason, because at the end of the day, we're trying to go to the same road, right? On the same path and the same outcome. um, and that being said, when we talk about our ethos, we really like make sure that our team members from the start actually also understands that that's our drive. Like, people, we want to support people, and so whether this is at home or at work, that's a fundamental that you must have within you. And if that's within you, then you're definitely culture fit for our team, so to speak. And then it goes back to our clients as well. It's the same thing. We assess our clients based off how they understand their own market. Like, who are they trying to talk to, right? And do they really believe in the product that they sell, for the people, and not just I want to sell. So we are quite selective when it comes to how we even decide our clients as a whole, because at the end of the day, you don't want to sell or create a strategy for a client that isn't really the same values as you, because in the end you're not going to be able to really support the journey. And I think, and over the years we've experienced that ourselves, where we've been approached for different types of clients, and the relationship maybe lasts less time, and we learn from that. And I think at the rebranding stage, we really honed in on that and really tried to understand, like, what kind of individuals do we want to work with for our future business, and let's just stay with that. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We want to make sure that everyone we work with, from the people in our team to the clients we have, that there's this same values that we carry, just because it makes our life easier, and also theirs. They'll be happy because we believe in the same thing. So yeah, that's my take on it.
So basically, people first and then profit later.
Yeah, in this case.
Some people would turn around and tell you that's a bad business model, by the way, Franki.
Yeah. So I want to know two things. Firstly, people before profit. And I mean, I agree with everything that you say. And for us, with our company, it's always about the humans. And that's why for us, we haven't been very strong online. We're very, very strong physically, because we've built that relationship with our customers individually, and we take time to get to know them. But can you just expand a little bit more about what that means when you talk about people first and then profit later? And how do you balance that? Because obviously you want to invest in the people that you want to invest in your team, first of all, and you want to invest in your client. And then when you invest in all of that, then the return comes, and that comes into profit, right? So if I was starting a business and I was hearing this, people before profit, what does that translate to? And when do I start seeing the profit? And do you start seeing the profit straight away? And is there a timeline before you see the profit?
I'll
Um,
let Nadzirah answer this.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like I can answer this question for you.
Yes,
So
please.
one of the things that I can say is for sure when it comes to how people versus profit is more profit, people over profit is more
Yeah,
profitable is when we start. Let's just start with the organization, right? You said like a
sure.
scenario where someone's starting a business. Um, what we've gathered at least is that if you invest in the people that you work with, you're essentially keeping them happy, therefore motivated. And
Mhm.
due to their motivation, they're more gung ho, so to speak, to contribute to the company and the growth of the company. So when it comes to the context of investing in the people in the company, giving them the environment that gives them this drive to continue to run your business for you is what you want, because one, you can't micromanage everything, and you can't be the one forever leading, because like all the big organizations, if you see, they start with making sure that the people they hire are actually better. So in the state of a small business, if we focus on that first, we would be able to have a better foundation. And that's one thing we really care about, foundation. So that's kind of like on the people of the company, how you invest in them and how you nurture them. And then when it comes to say your clients, how we perceive it at least is that when you invest in working, like, so one of the things we do, I'll give a really good example, is we run events. We've done events in the past here in Bali and also in KL, where we, what we call lead gen, have events that are relevant to with topics that we know the entrepreneurs that we want to work with would resonate with. And so with these events in mind, these events are 100% free, and we're generous with giving content because we really care about what these entrepreneurs are struggling with. So we're
Yeah,
thinking about them, right? We're not even thinking about, oh well, hopefully it turns into a sale. But what we
yeah,
realize is from that experience, from just purely caring about their business pain points and talking about it and giving them the avenue for it, they come back to us with that value and say, hey, you know what, we really believed in what you said, and what you guys shared was such high value. I want to work with you. How do I work with you? And sometimes they don't even know how to work with us yet. They just know that they do want to work with you, and it may not
mm,
happen in that day, but it might happen 1 month from now, 3 months from now. And this is the part where what we also do when when you do people first is you nurture the relationship. And I think like nurturing relationships in business is actually super super, like the ROI is actually really good. And if you talk about how long that takes, I would say within a year, but it depends on the context of your business, like what kind of
sure.
services you provide, and also like the resources you have to be able to nurture that relationship.
Yeah,
And I think one thing we know for sure is like if you're a solopreneur, it's you're the one who's doing all that, right? And so what I would advise to any solopreneur is take it a step at a time. First, understand who your market is and see if you can create that people driven strategy as well on your end. And I'm pretty sure that will really eventually translate into sales much sooner than you think. And yeah, that's how we see it.
And I think I want to
excellent.
add to that as well, Frankie. When we say profit later, people first, we're not saying that we don't care about numbers. I
Sure,
think all businesses need to have that foundation. And
of
if you're not
course.
keeping track of your numbers, if you're not doing projections, if you're not costing in what you're spending versus what you're earning, then you're not in business, right? What we're trying to say is that the profit will come if you do consider taking a little bit of that budget to invest in your people in
Sure.
that's actually working for your organization as well.
Yeah,
The money shouldn't just be going to like one source, which is just like the owners and the founders. It should be distributed, and naturally the domino effect will happen within the company finances over the year. If I just want to add to that.
Super. I totally resonate with everything that you are saying. I think we share very similar sentiments about how running the business and the people first. So on that note, we talk about people, and you also talked about community development, which is a big part of what you do. Um, Tell me a little bit more about that, because at the moment, I think companies are starting to think a lot more about community and doing a lot more community development work. My question is, I feel personally that it has to come from within you. And I think it goes back to your values and your ethos, right? Can a company actually be operating for many, many years and decide, oh, okay, community development is such a new thing and we should ride on that wave? It should be a part of our marketing strategy. Um, and, from our perspective, I think we can tell whether it's genuine or not. What do you think about authenticity versus gimmicky when it comes to community development, in relatable to marketing and what you do?
Yeah, I agree to that. A lot of businesses are now trying to mobilize this concept of community building as part of their marketing strategy.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's a new thing. It's just that it's trending right now, and
Yes.
it's increasing as well thanks to technology and all these different platforms that are out there that is like giving companies this opportunity to build little communities, right? And
Yeah.
it's exactly what you're saying here, which is consumers are a lot more smarter these days. They
Yeah.
can tell whether or not you're trying to put something out there because you care versus you're trying to put something out there because you want them to bite the bait, right?
Yeah.
And as consumers get smarter, I think businesses need to understand, like, how can we communicate in ways that is going to connect with them, not from the perspective of like just trying to convert them into a sale versus trying to reel them into a returning customer.
Yeah.
And I think community building is essentially that, returning customers or brand
Yeah.
loyalty, right? How
Yeah.
do you establish that for a business? And I agree with you, it's not easy depending on what stage you're at in your business, whether you're a business that is from like generations before to one that is today. The way we build communities is different. And I think the only way that it can be successful is for you to understand your segment, or at least deciding on a segment in your business that you want to focus on. And that's the starting point to how you would build a community. For example, on our end, we wanted to build a community and someone needed to drive it, right? And I took that decision to drive this community building aspect of the business. And because the nature of our business is marketing, so naturally, the kind of community that we want to build is marketers, but we're not just disregarding like marketers at what stage of their businesses. We're looking at marketers who are talents versus leaders, because marketers
Sure.
is vast. Like they could be at any stage of their job positions. But the personalization would come from the person who's driving it. And this again goes back to values. On my end, it was very clear for me that I'm passionate about how people are performing at work beyond the in a non-corporate way, i.e., like I'm interested in the well-being. I'm interested in
Sure.
the self. I'm interested in the personal development. I'm interested in how each one of us are showing up at work every day or making those decisions to run a career or to run a business, because we spend most of our lives building this part of ourselves,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of us struggle to understand what that means, right? So I tie that in with my interest in yoga, and a lot of the things that I study in philosophy in yoga is related to understanding the self and the relationship that we have with ourselves. And when I was going through the course, I realized that this is very important at both personal and at work. most times talents or employees struggle to maintain in a company or to perform because they don't understand what they're doing, they don't understand what they're good for, or they don't understand where they fit in the grander scheme of things, right?
So
And
important. Yes.
yeah, so if you make that effort, or the thing is, it's a privilege. I'm going to have a disclaimer here. It's a privilege to know this concept of self or who we are or observation, because this is the whole well-being narrative that we're all aware of, depending on our school of thoughts. But
it's important for us to grow our communities in a way where well-being is part of us, especially for
Yeah.
Rachel, because the reality is that as we live this world that we live in, it's very philosophical, but we are here at only a certain period of our lives, and
Mm.
I feel like that is why the whole idea of businesses creating a community has to happen in a way where it's quite like talking about the internal self of the person as well, because you only have one time to live, right? And so if you're
Mm.
living at one plane and you're working at the same time, you're living your career, how do you expand yourself as a person at the workplace and at home? And I think that was what
Mm.
Karma Marketing was all about. We were trying to really build that space for marketers to really find that balance within themselves. And as
Yeah.
Rachel mentioned, we're very passionate about self development, and so part of self development means doing this while you're at work as well, and not like a lot of people experience burnout because they didn't focus on the self. And this is what these communities should do, is to give this space where people find a sense of purpose, and that makes sense for it to not be gimmicky.
Mm.
And that's what Karma Marketing was meant to do in the end as well. Yeah, Rachel, just had to add on for you.
thank you.
Rachel, you talked about it's a privilege to know about oneself
Mm-hmm,
and to be aware.
mm-hmm.
Um, is it when you say it's a privilege, but can you learn to be self-aware? Because you talk about yoga and the philosophy of yoga, and because of that, you have learned to develop this awareness of the self. Um, but is that something that everybody else can learn?
Absolutely. I think when I
Yep.
say privilege, it means that we all have different access to education at different stages of our life. And of course, income levels, culture, there's all these different contexts that affects our ability to understand the self. So when I say privilege, it means that not all of us come from the same upbringing or the
Sure.
same narrative. And so some of us can be exposed. And so, yes, Frankie, we can learn. We can go through some sort of education course that gives us that ability, but we need to be given that opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
Otherwise, who's going to facilitate us? Who's going to guide us towards even realizing that there's such a thing? And I think if you're talking about company culture or community building in general, that's your opportunity. Providing those experiences that is not only about what you're trying to sell or what you're trying to do or create in this world, but as well as giving that person that is meant to be part of your community that opportunity to thrive or grow or gain
Mm.
a tool or two that's going to make you better. Because then me as an individual, when I'm trying to decide whether or not I want to join a community, like it makes sense. You're giving me
Yeah.
something that's going to help me.
Yeah.
Why would I say no? You know?
Mm.
And so if there are businesses out there who are like trying to think about building their communities, I would think it starts with first looking within yourself. Like if you don't understand yourself, then it's a little bit hard for you to decide what the business is going to need. And then from there, deciding that, okay, maybe this is what my customers or audience could benefit from me and why I'm here, you know?
Mm.
Yeah, that's about, yeah.
Very cool. Let's talk a little bit more about um, marketing tools.
Yes.
And so, you know, again, as an entrepreneur, you're always trying to figure out different strategies and different ways to market your product, to market your brand. And there's a lot out there, and it can be really, really confusing. Like, I'm confused. Do I go on TikTok? Do I go on Instagram? Do I go on Facebook? Um, do I use influencer marketing? And now there is UGC. Is influencer marketing irrelevant, or is it going to be irrelevant? What do I do? So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Um, if I'm starting up, and if I am a growing company, and if I want to scale up, are there different marketing tools for different types of businesses and different stage of the business?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really depends on what, first of all, let's talk about what your business offers, right? Like,
Yeah,
is it a service? Is it a product? And then we have to establish who are we talking to, because the market is vast, and at the end of the day, if the market is vast, you as an entrepreneur should not be trying to target everybody. And that's the
sure.
first thing we try to really hone in on. It's like, who is it, who's the persona, who are the people, types of people that would resonate with what you're selling. And ideally, you would have done your research and you know who these people are, and and then of course assessing the fact that the market really is in need of this product versus just trying to fill it in and thinking they might need it. That's very risky.
Mhm.
But once you do know, say you already know, you establish that, okay, I know this is my target audience. They're, age this to this, they're based in KL, and they're of this certain level of income. They're this kind of personality, they resonate with these kinds of brands. Then, if you can answer me all those questions,
Mhm.
we can pretty much understand where those people are online and offline, actually.
Mhm.
And so, for example, we would then look into, if we know that, say, they're an affluent community, right? They're into sustainability, for example. Would they be hanging out in, natural places that are organic, natural cafes? Would they shop at places that they have organic products? So then, you as a business owner, say you're selling a product that is within that realm, we would say, okay, this, first of all, go to market with your offline product at events or spaces that have these kinds of products as well, because that's where you will understand whether the market likes your product. Then, second of all, online, let's look at your competitors, right? What kind of content are they putting out there, and also what are your benchmark brands that you aspire to look like.
Mhm.
What are they putting out there, and then you ask yourself, can I afford or have the resources to be able to create something similar and promote my products online in that manner. The question you asked, whether it's TikTok or Instagram, this really depends on the age group.
Right.
And who are they, like, in terms of age? Are they like older people, millennials who are in the older side, or are they like, Gen Z's, right?
Mhm.
Everybody says Gen Z's are on TikTok, and I would agree. But I also know there are Gen Z's on Instagram. They've got like this anti TikTok. They want to be like, old school, so they'll go to Instagram. Instagram's old school, guys. but
My kid says that I'm old because I have
you use
Facebook.
Oh, yeah, well, that's even more old school, according to a millennial and a Gen Z. But that's the reality. Social media platforms sort of like have specific age groups already. So like, it really depends on the product that you're trying to sell,
Right.
and whether or not we decide to tell you, oh, go to Instagram or Facebook, like, that's on the market. And then if you ask, oh, should I use influencers or should I go for user generated content? I would
Mhm.
say, like, when it comes to user generated content, it's something that you have to know how to use the content that's being generated. Because there's no point for you to pay for UGC, but you don't know what you want to do with that. Is it for the sake of content because you don't have time to create content on social media, so you'd rather just get like a UGC person to do stuff for you, and you don't have the creative output, so you need them to just keep churning. Or if you want an influencer, I would say maybe this is for a launch of a product. So whether one works versus the other, I would say they both work. There,
Right.
the more credibility you get from influencers, and the more UGCs you get, the better your audience perceives you, because you have done all kinds of people showcasing your product. But when there's
Right.
none of that, there's none of like no UGC, no influencer. This is where people start to question your brand a little bit more and be like, is this brand legitimate? Where's, like nowadays it doesn't work if it's just product, flat lay and then just like stagnant imagery. You need something that looks more human centric, because we're
Yeah.
humans and we want to connect with people online, so I think the fact is, when it comes to, for a business owner, I would say it really depends on your audience, but do not disregard the fact that your content, whatever you create, should have human centric imagery. And that
Yeah.
could be in the form of UGC, that could be in the form of influencers as well. And don't forget also the team in your company. Let them use the
Mm.
product, show them, like, because that's also humans, right? And I think for a entrepreneur to start, you can start showcasing your team, at least the very least that you can start with, so that people understand the people behind the brand as well. But yeah, that's kind of how I would say, toolkit wise. It's not really a toolkit; it's a fundamental
Right.
that can lead you to decide on what your toolkit should look like.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot to learn.
There is, and I'm going to add to that as well.
Sure.
Once you know who you're speaking to, what you're selling, what you're offering, there's also the brand identity side that a lot of
Mm.
entrepreneurs struggle with, because
Mm.
okay, you know what you're selling, you know who you need to speak to, but branding is also about how you show up and how you communicate. And I think I noticed that a lot of businesses struggle with that because there's so many of the same out there,
Mm.
and they're trying
Mm.
to differentiate themselves,
Mm.
and they're not sure where to begin, right? So when I talk about branding, it's like things like your identity, your vision, your mission, your values,
Mm.
your colors, your font type, the choice of images. All that creates perception, whether it's both online and offline, right? So I think if this is also part of the marketing toolkit that a lot of businesses need to consider, the branding side, because it affects the way people perceive you and whether the effectiveness of that relationship that you're trying to build.
Mm. Can I ask one question? On that note, when you are communicating with your especially on social media, and when you want to create a message, whether it's through visual, whether it's through caption, and so on, should you be using small, very simple wordings, and should it go back to emoting a certain feeling to the audience? For example, for me anyway, personally, when we create our social media content, we always go back again to who we are, what we do, and our ethos. Um, and I try to go back to the human side of who we are, and not so much of our business and our product and what we do. I just say, okay, Frankie and Gaia, who are we, and what sort of a feeling do we want to create and communicate to our audience? Should we be emotional about how we communicate? I think
Mm.
that's the question.
Yes and no. I think it really depends on your marketing objective at that time and period.
Mhm. Mhm.
And also know that um, there's things like data. Like I know marketing is
Mm.
creative. Like, okay, yeah, we're trying to market, we're trying to provide service or offerings to the world. Great. But you can be both creative and structured when it comes to marketing. And I think that's the secret recipe that a lot of people tend to lose foresight on, because they're always trying to pick a side. Whereas if you
Right.
can try to be a little bit more dynamic or look at things from both black and white and in the middle, then the likelihood of you to make a decision would be a lot more holistic or proactive. So no, I mean, you can be emotional as and when you need to be, but then
Sure.
if you do your reporting and you look at your insights, your analytics, and you realize that those types of content or strategy is not performing for you, then you got to take a step back and evaluate your existing method, and then relook at your audience and figure out, okay, you may think that you should be emotional, but then the people that you're speaking to, do they even care about that style of conversation, or are they
Right.
looking at different things, right?
Right.
So it's, yeah, I think you need to always be able to have that flexibility to go in and out, you know, play different hats. And that's a value a marketer would have for any businesses, is that we can put on that cap on and off for you, and try to help you see things from different perspective and work towards a decision that makes sense for you.
Got it. Noted. So just a couple of questions, because we are running out of time. What's the future of marketing looking like? Do you anticipate things will change and shift differently, especially with AI now? I mean, obviously, it's already changing as we speak. Everything is just, but how do you see it? And like, will your agency or any agency be relevant with AI now being able to do everything you want just by you speaking to it?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say I think agencies and organizations like ours will still remain in the market because I mean, if it's anything, I think a lot of agencies are very much aware of what's going on in the world of AI because they know, like, oh, is this going to affect our business? But a lot of it, businesses are actually like on the AI side. I mean, agency side are adapting to it and utilizing the tools to advance their capabilities and maybe even produce more output faster. So now it's not about, oh, I'll give you X amount of content, churned out, blah blah blah. It's more, I'll give you better quality content or better quality anything because I'm utilizing AI with me guiding it towards a better output, right? So it's not like I'm 100% relying on AI to give me the answer, because that's a definite no. I've seen some brands actually just churn out captions using chat gpt, and I can tell because it's like the free version, and they
Right,
use very specific words that I can we can tell as marketers. But the
right.
the reality is that what I
Sorry,
would say,
you can tell as marketers, but can the consumers sort of like
I think they
point?
can. I think you
Okay.
can. Because if we can tell a picture of AI is fake, I think we can already start to establish that certain words that are being used within AI are sometimes out of context. Like if you're a reader, an English speaker, you read it, you can tell that maybe this caption's a little bit too flowery, for example,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Or too businessy when it's a fashion brand,
right,
like, or a travel brand that sounds like it's a business, and
right.
using words that are totally out of context. So
Yeah.
if you are articulate enough to read and understand, you
Mm,
would eventually capture, like, okay, this caption sounds very generic. And
mm,
for an agency, our job is to, sure, take the caption, but actually prompt the AI to do better
yeah.
at writing for you and not sound like a robot. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But that requires refinement and skill.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of small businesses that are already using AI like ChatGPT to generate their
Yeah.
captions. But
Yeah.
maybe what they need is our support to help them do it effectively.
And a
And
more
so
macro strategic level.
Correct. And so
Right.
on our side, like that's why we have PACE, our training program, whereby we
Mm.
support businesses like, hey, do you want your little team to like learn how to use GPT-4 and, Gemini or whatever you're using to,
Mm-hmm.
do
Mm-hmm.
this? So I
Yep.
think companies that are the future of marketing is that AI is here to stay for sure. Agencies will be here to stay, but it's
Mm-hmm.
about the race for agencies to be able to utilize this tool effectively with their clients, or
Right.
even agencies like us to support small businesses to effectively use it for
Mm.
themselves and do better with it, and not just kind of have it like level here, we're going to help you level up essentially. And I think that's important for the future
Mm.
of AI and marketing as a whole. Yeah.
So speaking of AI, when you are communicating to your audience, should you be honest and say this is an AI image credit to AI, or should you ignore and just pretend that your team did it? That
I
goes back
think,
into your ethos, right?
yes.
Authenticity and being honest and transparent.
I mean, on a general consensus, marketing ethics or ethics in general, if something is fake or not real, we should put a disclaimer. We should communicate
Okay.
it. We should be a bit upfront about it. And as you
Mm-hmm.
said, um, things are getting very saturated these days, at least in the
Mm.
way we consume content. And
Mm-hmm.
in order for you to stand out or to even get someone to pause as they're doom scrolling through their feed or looking through content, how would you speak differently? Because the similar words are coming out from AI tools, and the marketer's job is to basically refine it and edit it in a way that is more relatable, and that your
Mm.
audience will feel like, okay, maybe it wasn't just a robot there, that there's an actual person trying to speak to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I do believe in being transparent, um,
Mm-hmm.
when it's required, because there's a lot of news out there about misinformation, and we
Yeah.
study journalism. I mean, I don't think that will ever go away. I think it's important to continue vouching for it, especially
Yeah.
when technology continues to evolve, not in ways that it overpowers us, but
Mm.
complement the way we work, help us save time, help us create more space for other things
Mm.
that are more important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great points. Ladies, I have one last question, and it's a question that we tend to ask all of our interviewees. And it's a question that I'm very passionate about, not only as an entrepreneur, but as a human being, first and foremost. What's your philosophy on health? I mean, Rachel, I know that you're very, very big into this health and wellness. Um, your philosophy in health and wellness, and how this impacts your individual job and the company and your team. Um, and how much do you think we should invest in our health? I mean, the reason I ask this is if I were to go back 10 years ago and I was writing my business plan and how I want to develop Frankitas as a brand, I would have never thought to do it's all just about work and strategy and financials, projections, marketing, etc. It was never parallel to health. Is this going to impact my health in any way, my health and wellness in any way, physical and mental form? And should we all be putting this aspect into our business plan? Because I've never thought about it that way. And lately, I've been thinking a lot more about this because my health has been very much affected in the last 1 year. I've had surgery and I'm perimenopausal, and it's just it's been a real challenge, and I am struggling. And I
Mm.
just wished I had put that health element into my business plan. And now it's a big, big core of mine. How do you feel about this?
Oh, I 100% resonate with you. And I think one thing we forget is that health has always been around historically through different cultures, different school of thoughts. Health has always been a priority. But we live in day and age where we were all trying to, I mean, industrialization, I don't know, we're all like urbanization, modernization, whatever you want to call it. Like it was all work, do, create, capitalize, produce, right? And then I think us as society reached a threshold where, boom, suddenly people started to realize it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
There were like after effects like stress, burnout, people were not well. Let's not even talk about the pandemic. Like
Yeah.
there's a sudden awakening, which is
Yeah.
an irony because health has always been there as a subject
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
all cultures, but we just forgot
Yeah.
about it, or that it
Yeah.
became secondary or even not prioritized in our education system.
Yeah.
So now whatever you're saying is important because we're this physical frame or skeleton, as the people in India would say it, is temporary, and we are maximizing it over and over in a certain period of time. And if you were to think about it in the context of work, sure, we are all trying to work towards a specific vision or goal, but what's driving it is something very fragile and organic that technically is impermanent. Impermanence is like the biggest awakening that I've unraveled over the past few years. And I think the more we realize about that, the more we accept that it is so important to take care of it, because it's not going to be here forever. You know, you can have the biggest goals, the biggest vision, have all these grand plans, and then boom, something happens in the vessel that is trying to execute and create all these things, and then it doesn't matter anymore. Nothing matters anymore. So I think, a lot of companies are starting to realize that, not just as an after effect of them realizing the employees are demanding, the employees are not performing, the employees are just not delivering as they used to. They are becoming more informed as well to take care of themselves. There's the internet. We consume all this different content to realize that, okay, work is important, but who's going to look after me, right? If I'm not going to look after myself, then who's going to do it, I think, is the question. Maybe Naz has her own opinion about health as well. I mean, health is, important as a subject.
It's key.
I mean, I'm going to summarize it. Health is wealth. So
No, well,
health is wealth, and you just like, if you want to run a business or just function, you gotta prioritize your health, I would say.
You can make all the money in the world,
right?
Yeah.
Sorry?
It's your biggest commodity and currency that you have.
Absolutely.
Without it, how can you make money? How can you do a business without a healthy and wealthy mind?
Exactly.
And
ladies, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights, and everything that you've said today really resonates with me, whether it's to do with business, marketing tools, but also your community development work, people over profit, health and wellness. Thank you so much. It's been so good. Thank you.
Thank you, Frankie. Great conversation.
Thanks for having us. We had a great one.
Thank you for coming over and giving us your time and saying yes to us.
Thank you.
Take care, ladies. See you soon.
See you.
Catch up soon. Let me know when you're back, Gail.
Will do. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to Business on the Rise. Don't forget to follow us and subscribe to our YouTube channel.